everyone. My name is Adrian Chajec. I am a PhD student at Wrocław University of Science and Technology. I prepared for you the presentation entitled Bleeding of Cement Paste and Mortars Modified with Granite Powder. My supervisor is Professor Lukasz Sadowski. First, I would like to show my presentation plan. After a short introduction, I will present some information about state of the art, and next we will follow to research conducted in topic of my presentation. Now, introduction. I present some issues related with topic. Bleeding is the process of dispensing the water from the inside of the mixture towards the top. This process is combined with the force of gravity, which causes heavier particles to fall down. It is sedimentation. This phenomenon is especially noticeable in the format horizontally elements, for example, slabs and floors. Granite powder waste is a byproduct resulting from the processing cutting of granite rocks. Characterized in that the content of silicon dioxide is 50 to 80%, and aluminum oxide is 10 to 20%, and its grains are smaller than 0.2 millimeters. Concrete is the most used building material in the world. Bleeding is a crucial fresh property of concrete used in concrete slabs and floors. The figures presents the bleeding phenomena in concrete slabs. Bleeding process is strongly connected with early age properties of concrete. Bleeding is known topic. However, research related with bleeding often leads to different conclusions. Researchers are not convinced if bleeding is homogeneous or heterogeneous process. The pioneers of bleeding research include Josenrand and Larand, who not only defined the basic methods of bleeding research, but also the basic relationships related to it. Ji-Sun Poon identified the effect of various additives on bleeding in concrete, and Gungche and Chakir extended this topic. Figures show main types of methods of measurements the bleeding process. Based on literature review, it should be stated that static method is more precise and often used in research. Why we should control the bleeding process? Uncontrolled bleeding leads to serious damage of building structures. On the pictures, we can see different types of damages. Now I will present state of the art. For years, scientists from over the world are trying to testing the bleeding process in cementitious mixes. The table presents the literature review. We can see that the scale of cement mix commonly tested by researchers is concrete. However, the most basic properties of bleeding is observed for cement paste. Generally, the additive tested in research decrease the bleeding rate of mixes. Also, the higher amount of smaller grains of aggregates decreases the bleeding rate of mix. Based on state of the art, followed conclusion can be drawn. Bleeding is heterogeneous phenomena. Used by researchers, additives have different impact on bleeding in cementitious mixes. Bleeding is crucial properties of fresh mixes in slabs and floors. Bleeding depends on cement type used in research, and finer aggregate decreases bleeding rate in concrete. Now, research goals. The main goal is to determine the effect of granite powder addition on bleeding of cementitious paste. We have also side goals. Materials and methods. On the photo A, we can see the cement, and on the photo B, granite powder used in research. Diagram A presents chemical composition of cement, and B, chemical composition of granite powder. Bar chart presents the blind specific surface area of that two materials. Granite powder has higher specific surface area of grains compared with cement. Diagram presents the particle size development of cement and granite powder. We can observe that cement has finer graining. Now I present the research plan. The plan consists of 3 parts: morphological properties of ingredients, investigating of bleeding process, and analysis. The figure on the left side presents the methodology of bleeding measurements. Cement paste placed in special container becomes covered with a layer of trichloroethane. Based on sedimentation process, the lighter particles float upwards. Thanks for that, we can measure the volume of dispensed water in bleeding process. The figure on the right side presents the photo from research. Bleeding is in cement paste is characterized by the bleeding rate and bleeding capacity. Test was conducted according with the procedure ASTM C243. To describe the effect of modification of cement paste with addition of granite powder, 4 mixes series were prepared. Main research assumptions were constant water-bindo ratio, variable water-cement ratio, testing every research series of cement paste at least 10 times for statistical evaluation of results. Now, results and conclusion. Based on scanning electron microscope images, we performed morphological grains analysis. We selected 50 grains watched on the same picture, measured them, and we calculated factors describing morphology of grains as aspect ratio, area ratio, and roundness. Diagrams presents the result of morphological grains shape analysis. We can observe that granite powder has higher roundness compared with cement and smaller aspect ratio and area ratio compared with cement. The graph presents the volume of dispensed water in total time of bleeding process. We observe clear impact of addition of granite powder on the volume of dispensed water throughout the process. Granite powder addition decreases the volume of dispensed water. Also, we can observe that the bleeding process is heterogeneous and changing over the time. Based on that, we proposed the division of that process on 3 phases. Phase 1, initial bleeding, almost linear variable, low changes in each series. Phase 2, accelerated bleeding, high volume of dispensed water, clear differences between research series. And phase 3, stable bleeding, almost linear and slight changes in volume of dispensed water. Based on the result measured in the first 30 minutes of bleeding process, we proposed another division of the first phase of bleeding. We can observe phase stage, start of process, the same results of volume water for each series. Stage 2, components ordering, could be connected with impact of mixing effect. That stage of bleeding is unpredictable and variable. And third stage, appropriate bleeding, stable changes in volume water process could be predicted. Figure on the left side presents the results of bleeding rate for mixes modified with the granite powder. The figure on the right side presents bleeding capacity. It is obvious that granite powder decreases the bleeding in cement paste. Also, it may be stated that the higher amount of granite powder addition causes higher decrease of bleeding rate and bleeding capacity in cement paste. To conclude, it was observed that morphological properties of ingredients have impact on bleeding of cement paste. The addition of granite powder reduced dispensed water volume about 10%. The bleeding is definitely heterogeneous process. Based on performed research in the future, we will propose the model of bleeding for cement paste, and we will investigating the effect of bleeding in cement paste on the early age cracking of composite surface. Bibliography, and thank you very much for your attention.